Backseas Musical Podcast.
One of the biggest complaints that people had back in the 1970s is that if you were going to dish out as much as $12 or $15 for concert tickets, you better damn well get your money's worth. Back then, you'd pay your money, but you wouldn't necessarily get much of a show. There were, however, certain bands and certain artists that bucked that trend and delivered the goods night after night, not just by sounding great, but by actually giving the fans more than just a night of their greatest hits played on a stage. By all accounts, the Tubes are one of the most outrageous live bands ever. Their early shows were over-the-top events with dancers and choreography and comedians and explosions, and their charismatic lead singer, Fee Waybill, would completely own the stage in 2-foot platform shoes, performing as characters like Quaalude or Johnny Bugger. The shows were extravagant, provocative pieces of theater at a time when you could barely get some bands to even acknowledge that a crowd was in the building. The Tubes, on the other hand, would scare the living crap out of you. They'd entertain you. The whole show was something to take home and remember forever, playing iconic anthems like White Punks on Dope and What Do You Want from Life. In the 1980s, the Tubes would go on to reach the height of their commercial success with albums like The Completion Backward Principle with their hit song Talk to You Later, or their album Outside Inside, which spawned the biggest hit of their career, She's a Beauty. In 1985, the band broke up and then reformed in 1996, and they're still playing live today. This is my conversation with one of the great frontmen in rock history. It's Fee Waybill of the Tubes on Backseas Musical Podcast. Hey, I gotta ask you right off the top. Gil Fisher, the Fishin' Musician with John Candy on SCTV. Every time I see that video, Fee, it's so freaking absurd. It just makes me laugh every single time. You guys wearing, your gray suits, catching wide mouth bass, going back to the Scuttlebutt Lodge. Hilarious.
I have a funny story. That, obviously, that was like 81, I think, when Completion Backward Principle album was released. And, we flew up to Edmonton, Canada, and we always did really well in Canada. And, that was, in the early days, one of the first places where we actually got a gold record. So we fly up to Canada, and they tell us, okay, well, John's going to come, we want to go out to a lake that's outside of town. It's about an hour out of town. And we're going to show up with a limousine early in the morning, and you're going to drive out to the lake, and we're going to do the shoot, right, with cameramen and all this stuff. And so 6 o'clock in the morning, the limo shows up, and there's John Candy sitting in the back of the limo, and he's got a case of beer and a bag of weed, okay? And he's already had like 3 beers and smoked a couple of joints. He goes, oh, come on, get in the car. And so we all pile in, and we drink beer and smoke dope all the way out to the lake for an hour.
Fantastic.
And we're all just whacked, and we, you kind of, I say, okay, well, what's happening? He goes, well, we're going to get in boats, and we're going to go out, and we're going to pretend to be fishing, and we're going to pull up boots and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I said, and then what? And he goes, well, then we're going to go into the lodge, and, we're going to talk, and we're going to have a little interview time, and then you guys are going to perform She's a Beauty. I mean, Sushi Girl, sorry. Okay. And we're thinking, and I'm going, well, do we have a script, or he goes, no, we're ad-libbing the whole thing all day. I'll just roll with me. And okay, if that, whatever.
I give you credit because you dropped the perfect line that hanging out with Gil Fisher for the afternoon was the highlight of your sporting career. I thought that was a great line from you.
Yeah, he was such a classic. Oh God, the guy was. And then on that same trip, we did Catherine O'Hara's. What was their character name? Lola. Lola Heatherton.
Lola Heatherton, right?
Remember, she used to do a character named Lola Heatherton, and we did Talk to You Later on the Lola Heatherton show,
Oh my
and
God.
so yeah, I mean, it was so cool, SCTV back then.
I know. Yeah, and he did an episode as Gil Fisher with Wendy O. Williams of the Plasmatics, and they just weren't biting that day. Got lucky, or even if the gray suits were like Bassmasters, Cabela's style issue type of suit you were wearing, but man, that looks like a good day on the lodge.
Yeah, it was great. Well, I mean, the suits were part of the the album cover, the Completion Backward Principle, whole kind of corporate parody thing that album was all about.
Well, that's an album that I had, when it came out, and I played the living crap out of that record. I mean, I really did. I just every time it started with the with the introduction to Talk to You Later, with the with that with that kind of industrial sounding narration, and every time I hear Talk to You Later, it's like, damn, what a great song that was.
Yeah,
it was the punchiest sounding record that you guys had done up until that point.
Yeah,
and I know.
Well, yeah, it was David Foster, man. It was David Foster. He's the guy is brilliant. That's why. I mean, David Foster is a genius.
Yeah. We'll get into talking about that album in just a little bit, because obviously the Tubes are very busy right now. You're on tour. In fact, you're coming through Massachusetts in October.
Yeah, our first show after 19 months is on Friday here in Orange County, California.
Wow.
And then we're playing, Scottsdale, and then Sacramento, and then we're going back east and going to play Memphis, and then all these shows and coming to Mass.
I know the plan prior to the pandemic was to play the Completion Backward Principle all the way through. Is that still part of the plan for this tour?
Yes.
It
is. Yes,
right.
We figured, we were right in the middle of doing a whole bunch of dates in 2019, and then so we're still doing it because all of these dates, a lot of them were scheduled back then and they're being rescheduled, and we're coming, we're still doing Completion Backward Principle, top to bottom, and then a bunch of other songs, She's a Beauty and White Punks on Dope and Bondage and What Do You Want from Life and all those other kind of iconic songs that that people want to hear.
Are you still wearing the boots?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I haven't worn them for 18 months, so I have 19 months. So it's going to be a challenge, that's for sure, getting back up on those things.
No offense, but you're not getting any younger.
No.
You'll be 71 in September, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
I'll be 55 next month. I don't think my ankles could handle 2-foot platform boots of any kind.
I know. I mean, I'm trying to, for all this time, I've been trying to continue to work out, and we got a dog in the end of 2019. We rescued a dog, and so Daisy, she's sitting here with me, and so she needs to walk every day. So we go hike. We're going hiking. 5 days a week. We're hiking. It's keeping my legs and ankles strong.
How is it playing with guys? Because most of the original members are still with the band. You, Prairie Prince, Roger, and Rick.
Right.
How is it playing with these guys after 49, 50 years? I mean, it's an extraordinarily long period of time to be in a partnership with anybody, never mind all the changes and ups and downs of a music career to go along with it. You can count on maybe two hands the amount of bands that are still at it after all that time. I
know what you mean. I mean, we're so lucky. I mean, we have hair. Nobody went bald. We have, nobody got any horrible disease. Nobody, everybody's stayed really healthy. And I mean, I had a hip replacement and a partial knee replacement. I'm all good. I'm titanium solid. And Prairie just had both of his knees replaced about 6 or 8 months ago, but he's back in shape. Roger's playing tennis all the time. So everybody is really conscientious about staying in shape and being able to go do this and do a 2-hour show, do 3 in a row, do 4 in a row, travel every day. And, I think it's pretty unusual. I think it's pretty unusual.
I think it's real unusual. I don't know of any orthopedic surgeon in America that would recommend 2-foot platform boots after all those surgeries.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not asking. I'm not asking. I'm afraid of what they'll say. So, I like I said, I'm working out constantly, and we just went for a hike the other day. We went to my wife and I went to Sun Valley with a friend of ours, and first day we were there, we went for like a 6-mile hike up in the hills, and
wow, good for you.
My doctor says I got to do 10,000 steps a day. That's what he said. You want to stay healthy? 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I would tell my doctor, how about my checkbook is 10,000 steps away when I pay your copay? How about that?
Really?
So you also had a record that came out just before the pandemic, Waybill Rides Again. Are you playing any of the songs on that during this tour?
Well, no, not really. We're not.
No.
We haven't really. We just started rehearsing. Like, we weren't sure any of these dates were going to happen, and we just started rehearsing like 2 weeks. Week before last, I went to San Francisco and rehearsed for a week with the band, and it was bad enough after 18 months trying to remember the damn songs that the tubes do. And I had printed out a bunch of lyrics, and I thought, oh God, do I even remember the words to White Punks on Dope? And so I had printed out all these lyrics, to remind me. And it turned out that I didn't use any of them. It turned out I just sat, I stood up in front of the microphone. We have a little rehearsal. The Prairie has an art studio in San Francisco, and we turned it into a rehearsal hall, and I just opened my mouth and the words came out. And I don't know. I was trying to think, okay, what's the first line? And when we got to the first line of the song, I went, yeah, teenage had a race for the nighttime. Yeah. And it just all came out. Every song came out, and I couldn't, if I would sit there before we started and try to go, okay, now what's the lyrics to and it just, I guess it's just, automatic. There's been, after 45 years of doing this, you don't have to think. You just open your mouth and sing.
Last year, I interviewed Russell Mael from Sparks, and they had quite a few years ago had done a series of shows in London, 21 albums in their entirety over the course of 21 days. And and to me, just the idea, I can't remember my phone number half the time.
That's insane.
It's insane. And I said, would you ever do it again? He said, oh, no, we would never do that again. But to remember, 21 albums. I assume that when you go back and you look at all of Completion Backward Principle, there are some songs that you guys probably haven't done in years. So the idea of going back and you're recalling how to play it, how to sing it, what the words. What a cumbersome idea that was. I wouldn't suggest that for you guys or any band for that matter.
We had done in 2019, we started doing the Completion Backward tour. And so when we first got together, we went, geez, we haven't played Let's Make Some Noise in 25 years. And so we had to, we hadn't played Think About Me, a lot of the like Amnesia, Mr. Hate, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, Talk to You Later. A lot of those songs we've done in other sets, and we always, for years, we never do the same show. Right. About every year we go in and we rehearse. Okay, what's the theme of this show? Is it a couple of years ago we did a Fellini show, a La Dolce Vita kind of theme, and I did Marcello Mastroianni, and we did some songs in Italian, and then we did the last show was called the Mondo Pulp Show, and it was kind of a tribute to Quentin Tarantino and Pulp Fiction, and we did the song, the Chuck Berry song that they did in the twist scene, the twist contest scene. So we kind of about every year or so we kind of sit down and think about, okay, what's the theme of this show? And what kind of, we did a film noir show, which is kind of real dark, and everybody wore trench coats. And, but since we had done it since all these dates coming up in October, I think only one of them is a repeat date where we had done Completion Backward Principle already.
Oh,
and
really?
None of the rest of them are. And so we went, let's make it easy on ourselves. Okay, let's not try to create an entire new show with a whole bunch of new material. Let's continue to do Completion Backward Principle, and to all these venues that haven't seen it before. And it's a great show. I mean, those songs are so iconic. I think that is the best record we ever made. It wasn't the biggest seller, but I think it's just my opinion.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that. But you talk about live performances, and the thing that I remember about the Tubes is the reputation that you guys had was, you're not just going to, you put yourself back in the mid 70s, and you'd spend as much as $12, $15 on a concert ticket. You expect to see a show. Meanwhile, what you have is the band with their back turned to the audience, and it wasn't much of a performance. But with the Tubes,
right,
it was always a performance, and in a way, in the same way that Kiss used to put on a magnificent show, you guys were doing the same. I don't want to say the same kind of thing, but had the same concept that if your fans are gonna come out and support you, you need to give them every penny's worth of your time. I appreciate that kind of effort. No, I'm walking out of there and I'm going to see a hell of a show.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think you're right. We in the early days, we started doing big theatrical shows, and it just, and every show was bigger, and we hooked up with Kenny Ortega, who kind of choreographed the chaos, and we had dancers and singers, and the crew. I mean, if you were in the crew of the Tubes, you were going to be in the show one way or another. You're going to be somebody. You're going to be the strong man, or the fireman, or the policeman, or somebody. And in White Punks on Dope, everybody's going to be on the stage. That's the way it was, and we pride, art for art's sake. We would pride and our management, would just go crazy. Oh my God, you can't spend all this money on people. You're not, you lose money. And, I said, well, you're getting your piece off the top. Okay. So we're going to do a big show. That's the way it is. And, we'll worry about paying our bills later. And, so, I mean, that's just, I was an actor in high school and a singer, and Prairie was an artist, and Mike Cotton was a set designer, and Bill was kind of a satirist, and it's just, we just combined all of these innate talents, and we couldn't ever be a band, like the Grateful Dead. I mean, I love the Grateful Dead, but they would stand there with their back to the audience and just play. And we never could do that. From the very beginning, we could never do that. But we were always trying to figure out, okay, what can we do here that's going to blow somebody's mind? What kind of entertainment can we capture on?
But part of the appeal of a Grateful Dead show wasn't necessarily the band themselves, but people were more entertained by the people who were around them. People who were there at the show. It's part of the culture of being a Deadhead.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a cult. It was a cult. You're right. And it's I mean, they were one of a kind. I mean, they didn't care back then if you tape. I remember, back in the early days, we would see people taping the show, and we'd send the security guy out to bust them, or see people videotaping the show, and we'd send security out to bust them. And, Grateful Dead shows, they didn't care. And there used to be, I saw them a couple of times, and there used to be a section in the middle of the auditorium that was like fenced off for all the people that wanted to set up their recording equipment, and it's completely, I mean, obviously now, we don't do anything, everybody's got a cell phone, and half the people are recording the concert on their cell phone. And so, I mean, there's nothing you can do.
The first few albums that you guys had done, they were all very good records, and you talk about, Completion Backward Principle being the highlight of all of them. But I think, and so many bands talk about this, the difficulty of taking the energy of a live performance and trying to transpose it into a recording studio, and how difficult that is. And I assume that the same was a mystery to you guys. How do you get that kind of energy and then recapture it without a crowd, without the adrenaline of that relationship? How difficult was it for you guys to try to recreate it? Did you feel like you ever really got there with any of your albums?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we did the third album that we did was a live double album that we did in London, but we recorded 8 nights in a row at Hammersmith Odeon. So we had a wealth of material and of different performances to choose from. But I think it kind of depends on the producer. Like we kind of got that feeling on the first album with Al Cooper, and he kind of just let us go wild in the studio. And like when we did White Punks on Dope, White Punks on Dope, there was a band down the hall called the Eagles recording in the same studio, and we didn't know who they were in '75, and we just drug them down to our studio and we go, hey, we want you guys to sing White Punks on Dope as a chorus. And we went, oh, okay. And that really made that first recording sound live and captured that essence of live.
Yeah.
And then, later on we did like the second album, Young and Rich, Ken Scott really didn't have that kind of a mentality, and then we kind of, when we did Remote Control with Todd Rundgren, we kind of got back to that, and Todd would we kind of do a lot of takes and not worry too much about perfection, and then when we worked with Foster, I mean, there was no hint of that. He wanted it to be perfect, and we would do it again and again and again and again and again to be perfect. But in his defense, I think that completely changed me as a vocalist. I mean, I worked so hard for him, and I became such a better singer because of his encouragement and his training. I mean, I remember the very first song I did with Foster was Amnesia, and it took me a week, and I kept coming back the next day, and I thought, okay, well, we got the first verse. Let's go to it. He goes, no, I think we better do the first verse again. And then again, and it was like Mutt Lange, just, trying to get a vocal out of Joe Elliott and Def Leppard. And
as a vocalist, do you get frustrated by that, or do you see the method behind the madness to have you try to make it perfect?
I did get frustrated but I couldn't show it. Here we are with this legendary producer, and I want to try my best to live up to his demand. And it was, back then there was no Pro Tools. There was no flying in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
There was no fixing the pitch, fixing the time, none of that. And so, you had to do it again and again and again to live up to his expectation. I mean, now I just did my solo album with Richard Marx, which and Richard and I are best friends, and I think Richard is equally as fabulous a producer as David Foster, if not more, and the best songwriter I've ever met or worked with, and we're doing my record, the Fee Waybill Rides Again record, and he produced every track, and when I'm doing vocals with him, he goes, okay, well, we're going to do this, and sing it again, sing it again, sing it again, sing it again, but then you can go back, with Pro Tools, and you can pick every word that's perfect, and yet still, have that kind of live kind of sound. I don't know if you've heard the record, but
I have actually. It's great. You sound terrific on it. And I don't know if that's just based on the power and natural ability of your vocals, but there are certain things that can be done that could never have been done in
Oh
'81
yeah.
with David
Oh
Foster.
yeah. I
Come
like
up.
to think it's because I'm such a great singer.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, right. I mean, I'm certainly not going to take anything away from your vocal. I mean, I think your vocals are wildly underrated. I think you've always been a great singer. You know, I mean, I was in high school chorus. I couldn't hit half the notes that you do with the power, and to have been doing it for 50 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's remarkable, and even the live videos that I've seen of the band playing as far back as just 2019. I mean, you still sound terrific. I mean, it's
You
not
know,
like
I have to say that I am so lucky to, have my voice and have it as strong. And I think it's a testament to how, I've really concentrated on staying in shape and not, and staying thin and staying strong. And that, I mean, the vocal cords are just muscles.
Mhm.
And, and if you keep them strong and keep them toned up, I'm doing my wife and I, Elizabeth, are working on a book of my life. It's called Waybill's Guide to an Unknown Trail. And it's got all of these pictures and interviews and all kinds of stuff. My mother, was kind of the inspiration. My mother, kept everything. She kept all the magazines and all the interviews. And when she died back in 2004, we went to the house where I grew up, and we find in the closet this giant stack of boxes full of stuff and magazines and newspaper clippings and posters and just everything. So we were like, oh, well, God, let's use all this stuff. And we started going through it, and let's put together, I'm putting together like a kind of a autobiography, a big kind of coffee table book. And I look at some of those old itineraries that we find in there. Well, we were doing like 10 in a row. I couldn't believe it. 10 in a row in a different city every night. And I mean, 10 in a row. And, today my limit is 3. I'll do 3 in a row, and then I got to have a day off. And, I can't, it's stunning to me that I could do that and never worry about nodes or, all kinds of vocal problems. What I used to do was acupuncture. I used to go, if we'd had 10 in a row, I'd set it up ahead with the management or the record company representative or whatever, and find an acupuncturist the day of the show. And we'd come into a city, and I'd go to some acupuncture guy or girl, and they would stick needles in my throat and stick a needle into my vocal cords. And I would lay there, and, they would, spin the needles around, and sometimes they hook up an electrical charge to them.
Mhm.
And that's what saved me again and again and again, doing acupuncture.
That's really interesting. And I think like any, you talk about it being a muscle and keeping it in shape. The way I've always kind of perceived it is it's kind of like you being a professional athlete. And, the only way to perform at a certain level is to make sure that you are constantly, focused on
Right.
keeping that muscle as toned and as pliable as it can possibly be. I mean, any whether it's,
Right.
sucking on lemons and, and guzzling honey, or if acupuncture or massage or whatever it winds up being, works for you, then God bless you for being able to find it. Think about all those guys who've been in bands that, their voices are completely trashed and they can't carry a tune in a sack.
Oh,
It happens all the time.
I know.
It's terrible.
I know it happens I know. I mean, how many lead singers has Journey gone through?
I know.
That they burn out. And although I met this Steve O'Jerry is a great singer and a great guy. He was the first replacement of Steve Perry back, in the day.
Yeah.
And he's a great singer. And we did some gigs together, and he's a really nice guy, and a good singer. So, but they burned him out, and he couldn't handle it. They just, and that happens, same thing with the guy in AC/DC, not Bon Scott.
Brian
Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
but that's also the way he sings too. I mean, that's top
Well, I
register
know.
screeching that
That's
you can
yeah.
feel the damage when he sings.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah, I know. All those screaming high notes, oh my God.
Yeah.
You cringe when you hear him sing. So it's not surprising. But you're right. It's just, it's like an athlete who, in the off season and, in the off season, like in the old days, the off season, they would sit around and drink beer and smoke and sit on the couch but not anymore. Not today with the information that you have on health and on. I mean, look at Tom Brady. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And LeBron spends $1 million a year on keeping in shape.
Yeah, it's remarkable that they can play at that level at an advanced age. I mean, the wear and tear in their bodies. I mean, they may 10, 15, 20 years from now they may regret that sort of longevity. But like anybody in their prime, they've put the work into maintaining their craft, which is which
Right.
sounds like exactly what you've done.
Right.
You have maintained that craft at a time when in a business where there's loads of temptation to do otherwise and to not take care of yourself and to just
I know. I have to say that, after I'm a little nervous, to be honest with you. I've been singing a lot but I sing in the car and driving around, but it's not the same. It's not the same as a live performance when you got the adrenaline happening and the audience happening and you're maybe pushing a little bit too hard and so not having done a show for 19 months, I'm a little on edge here with our show coming up on Friday, and I'm a little on edge, and I've really got to, stay focused and make sure that my enthusiasm and adrenaline don't just completely blow me out of the water on the first night.
I would think it's very much like when you're, trying to relearn those lyrics all over again. And on some level, there's a muscle memory that kind of puts you back in that space. And as long as as long as that stage is owned by Waybill and the Tubes, you have a certain comfort level with knowing you're surrounded by a bunch of guys that you've known forever. Even the least tenured part of your band has still been with you for 20 years. You're in a comfort spot, but those nerves, those butterflies are always going to be there no matter what you do. And then sometimes that fuels you.
Yeah, it does. And it's like it's like you're nervous right up until the first note, and then it just kind of melts away. And there's something, my wife always says it. There's something about when we get together. We've been together for so long, and it's not like we hang out really. They all live up north, and I live in LA, and it's not like we're going to dinner and hanging out and going to the movies together. And there's none of that. They all have their own lives and their own wives and their own, situations happening. But when we all get back on that stage together, it doesn't matter how long it's been, there's something that happens. There's some kind of special energy that blossoms, and everybody goes, oh yeah, okay, right. We can do this.
Is there any plans to start writing new music as the Tubes, or is that not part of the plan right yet?
Well, there's really no plan right now. We're just taking it day by day, and we have some tracks in the can, and we had been working on it in the last, the last couple of years before the freak out. And, but we're just kind of, at this point, we're just kind of going, okay, let's just get started here again and, see if we can resurrect some of these dates that were canceled. And it looks like, cause we in the middle of 2019, we got signed by a management company that's with Live Nation. And, cause for like 10 years before that, I was doing everything. I was the manager. I was the booking agent. Not the booking agent, but I was the travel agent. I was everything. I'm so we met a guy named Jonathan Wolfson, who is an artist manager that's affiliated with Live Nation, and he, he's just taken such a load off me. It's incredible. And we moved to we were with an agency that was kind of, the guy was kind of older, and he didn't want to work too hard, and was kind of more interested in his family and his personal life. And we went to a new agency, AGI, and a young agent guy who is, energetic and wants to make a name for himself. And so we moved to a great management and a great agency. We really were, we did a lot of shows in 2019. We had plans in 2020. We were going to do a shed tour with a big name, and we were going to do this and going to do that. And, needless to say, the whole thing fell apart.
Right.
But it looks like, we're going to continue on through the year, and they're starting to work on, November dates. And then there's a plan. There's a potential plan to go out with the B-52s.
Oh, really?
In the beginning of the year.
That would be a great show.
I think that would be a great show. What a perfect combo.
Yeah.
It would be, they're wacky and they're theatrical and they're iconic and have some great songs. And so hopefully that'll happen. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but that it looks like they're working on that. And they seem to be amenable to it as well as just like we are. So,
well, that would be great.
So it all looks good here. It looks like, we're back in the saddle again, as they say.
Well, I got to say, Fee, I have a million more questions to ask you about, but I know you are pressed for time a little bit, but I do appreciate everything. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys come to Massachusetts, October 23rd. In New Bedford, and the 24th in Salisbury, Mass. Those will be great shows.
Salisbury Beach, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
We played the Blue Ocean. We played that club before. That's a really cool club. It's like hanging right over the surf. It's really cool. We played there before years ago, and I can't remember if we ever played New Bedford before. I don't remember, but it'll be. We love doing those kind of Northeast. That's kind of our genre, We play the West Coast and the East Coast, and those Northeast states, New York City and Boston, and that's kind of, we don't play the South a lot, I have to say. Although we are booked to do a show in Memphis, but they kind of don't get it, in the South.
I don't know. It's a lot of time has passed. They may not have gotten it in 75, but they may get it in 2021, 22.
Well, that's true. That's true. I wouldn't have thought that they would have booked us for a big gig in Mississippi, but they have.
Exactly.
We're playing in a place called South Haven in September, which is about 5-10 miles south of Memphis, just across the state line. And I went, what? Mississippi? Are you kidding me? I don't think I've ever even been to Mississippi, let alone ever played there.
And now's your chance.
I guess things are changing.
I guess so. Fee, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. Best of luck on the tour and with the album, too.
Thanks,
Fee, Waybill
Mike.
Rides Again.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And we'll see you out there.
Sounds
okay?
good. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to blast it all over the place. Send it to your friends. Share it on social media. Give it a nice review. All of it helps every single time. And you can email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. Again, thank you for listening to Baxy's Musical Podcast.